Welcome back to Inside Politics. Many thanks for staying with us. We are discussing some of the political formations that are emerging as we head into the 2022 general election. We want to focus on ODM party leader Raila Odinga, who has obviously declared, who is obviously seen as one of the presidential hopefuls going into 2022. He has been campaigning for the BBI, but he has seen like a man who's been sidelined by the rest of his former colleagues, especially in the National Super Alliance. The Sunday Standard, the headline of the Sunday Standard is, "I won't endorse anyone. Talk of betrayal." Raila Odinga hinting at new coalitions ahead of 2022 polls, but saying he will not endorse any of his former NASA colleagues. He was quoted saying, talking about the swearing in at Uhuru Park. When we were going for the swearing in, he says, they refused. They now want me to give them the mantle by supporting them. Can I give them the mantle? I won't give them because they demonstrated their cowardice. That is ODM leader Raila Odinga shooting from the hip. Let me begin with you, Mark Bichache. Where do you see the political future of Raila Odinga in the face of all this, in the face of the BBI process?
Well, the political future for Raila Odinga is best studied in two ways. One, in terms of his past, and two, in terms of his recent actions regarding the BBI. First, in the past, we must remember that Raila Odinga has been within a hair's breadth of presidency 3 times in this country. Every time he comes pretty close, but he falls short by a few 100,000 votes, where those few 100,000 votes are in central Kenya. Now, why do I mean central Kenya? If central Kenya continues to have Raila phobia, then Raila has a problem. But if that image is dented, if he can achieve even 10% of the Mount Kenya vote swinging his way, or if that 10% simply abstains from voting, whether it's 2007, 2013, or 2017, then you see a Raila Odinga presidency. Secondly, Raila Odinga has managed to keep his constituency within the ODM fold for a long time. He's got tentacles in the coast. He's got tentacles in Cumberland. He's got tentacles in the north of Kenya. He's got tentacles in Masai Rift Valley, and he's got tentacles in most, if not all, of Western Kenya. And therefore, he's got the clout necessary to make an adequate stab at the presidency.
Right.
But also, BBI is giving him good fortunes. What are those good fortunes? So far, a lot of county assemblies seem to be passing BBI, and that will be seen as a win for Raila. But finally, the coalition that has been made by Gideon and Ilk also is quite focused on not asking the deputy president not to run. They're asking Raila Odinga not to run, which means they're playing on the same team, asking for the captain to take the bench while they score the goal. So Raila Odinga is still quite in charge, and he's the man to beat within NASA, and the decision he makes is what NASA or whatever you call it will have to adjust to.
All right. Hesbon, what does Raila Odinga sell going into 2022? Because he has been working with President Uhuru Kenyatta for the last 3 years with a handshake. So does he sell what the Jubilee administration has achieved? Does he criticize the government? Does he run on the promise of the BBI? What is his messaging?
I think Raila Odinga has been a lot more consistent in his reform agenda. I don't think that has ever changed. Even when he was the prime minister, I think the number of things that he stood for were actually things that were, disrupting the status quo in the interest of the public. And then looking at the political dispensation today, you realize that we've gone a full circle. We've moved from, the KANU era of leadership to opposition taking that power in 2002. Then we've moved from President Uhuru Kenyatta losing in 2002 to the same President Uhuru Kenyatta winning in 2013, and now leading as the first amendment of the Constitution. And I think this works so well with Raila Odinga's reform ideology, because then he fits into what President Uhuru Kenyatta is leading this country to. A united Kenya that is, looking at economic prosperity that will be shared. And then we've also moved from the 2010 Constitution to a critical constitutional moment that will be ushered by the BBI Amendment Bill. So you look at all these reforms and what President Uhuru Kenyatta has championed, and the fact that he has unshackled himself from that tradition of being part of, the status quo, and you're looking at Raila on the other side, thinking of a possibility of the Young Turks, the early 1990s, coalescing along real reforms. We've seen pictures of the people Raila is hanging around in the recent past, and you're thinking that with the key role that President Uhuru Kenyatta is playing in bringing real reforms, devolving resources to the most local level in this country, I think it fits into the Raila Odinga reforms agenda, and I think that is his biggest asset.
All right. Dismas, in 2017, Raila said that was his last bullet. I don't know who actually said that. Let me take that back. But it was said that that was Raila's last bullet. Now we are seeing him trying to, come up with another formation. Does he have anything left in his tank? We did see in 2007 him coming up with arguably the most lethal political organ, the Pentagon. We did see in the National Accord in 2013, the Coalition for Reform and Democracy. We did see the National Super Alliance in 2017. We have seen him hanging out. There's a picture that has been doing rounds on social media of Odinga and the Makueni governor, Kivutha Kibwana, Prof, and Mukhisa Kitili, who has also declared his interest in the presidency. Does Raila Odinga have anything left in his tank to come up with another super team?
Well, there are three ways to look at it. Number one is trust a politician at your own peril. They'll tell you something at 11 o'clock, and 1 hour later, they'll do a quick U-turn. So never, ever trust a politician's word. And the two candidates that you've described, they're holding political power today, or they're friends with the people who are holding political power today, and they've been making promises on how they're going to grow the economy. So you wonder, how come they're not growing the economy today? What are they waiting? I mean, why are they waiting till 2022? Why can't they run on a record? Why are they running on promises? So when a politician makes a promise, if they give you a check, don't bother to take it to the bank. But now looking at Raila Odinga as a personality, he's an enigma, and his supporter base, which is sliding by the day, is largely emotional and irrational. So when he tells them to jump, they will not ask the merits of jumping. They'll simply ask how high. And Raila Odinga, because of his grassroots network, he's got capacity to reinvent himself. So anybody who's going to write off Raila Odinga today will be doing a huge mistake. But as we approach 2022, we need to ask ourselves that what is our selfish interest in the outcome of 2022? Are we going to vote in politicians who are going to be running on promises? And when they make a promise, say in 2017, they're given the opportunity to run the nation for the 5 years, they're doing nothing but campaigning. So do we want to run with these politicians whose only track record of success is campaigning and radicalizing the Kenyan youth? Or are we going to look for somebody who can actually grow the economy? And as political scientists say, that you normally get leaders that you deserve. So if you vote with your selfish interest in mind, then you will go and vote for a leader who will take Kenya to the next level. But if you vote and you're a victim of fake news, alternative facts, lies and deceit, you may end up voting for people like we saw in the previous election. Like the governors we voted in parts of Kenya that had to be removed from office so that you have NMS coming to deliver. So really the Kenyan voter has got a choice. You can go with razzmatazz politics, or you can go with development politics.
Javas, what do you see Raila doing? Is he sticking with his reform agenda? Do you see anything with that picture that has been doing the rounds?
Well, at the risk of sounding like a court poet, I would say that with respect to matters political dexterity, Raila Odinga is the most adroit politician in flesh in the Kenyan political cosmos. And that is what makes him that guy to keep on looking at. Because like a snake, he keeps on shedding off the old skin every 5 years. And his opponents sadly keep on looking at the old skin, and Raila himself with the new skin, the snake has shifted. When you look at the history of Raila Odinga, you realize that every 5 years, Raila Odinga has reincarnated. He has reinvented himself. And that is the extent of dexterity that his opponents are incapable of having. And that's what also keeps Raila on the map. That's why also when you look at him going into the 2022 general election, the way he is working his ground and the manner in which he has kept his organic support base sets him apart to the extent that he does not see any clear challenger in the coalition of Mudavadi or even in William Ruto. Only that in William Ruto, Raila Odinga sees a man who is able to work the crowds and a passionate campaigner just like himself, an energetic politician who can rival his energy. And so to this extent, you see that Raila Odinga already in trying to meet, yes, Mukhisa Kitili, PhD, yes, Kivuta Kibwana, PhD, you realize that, and politicians in their own right, you realize that he's trying to rethink the approach with which he's going to drive the 2022 campaign agenda.
All right.
That one, Mukhisa Kitili with a possible, being a possible member with Raila Odinga's team, and Kivuta Kibwana, you see that these are guys who are seen to likely bring with them the benefit, not just of international acclaim and clout, but the brain power as well. And in the end, I also anticipate that Raila Odinga will not just remain with this possible team that he's working with. Mm-hmm. So that makes Raila Odinga a clear subject of interest to any person who intends to contest the presidency in 2022.
Kipchumba, does everything for Raila Odinga depend on Kenyans endorsing the BBI?
Not really, Ben. You have to look at Raila, the politician who for the last 30 years has always been formless, and it is that has made his longevity in politics tenable. You have to realize that even with or without BBI, Raila is still a formidable politician. Formidable, why? Because even as Wetangula and Mudavadi are drifting away, Raila Odinga has realized that he has a support base in Western Kenya that must have a figurehead, and he's already in the process of acquiring another figurehead who will come and replace the two who are leaving. What does he do in Ukambani? He realizes that even in his own estimation, Kalonzo Musyoka, his clout is moving because of his age and whatever is happening to his hair in the brain.
Is it though? I mean, those sound like very big assumptions.
No, they are not assumptions. Let me take you home, Ben.
If you go to the ground, I think you'll find things are a bit different.
Allow me to take you home.
Yes.
We have seen recently in a burial when Kalonzo Musyoka used some words against Muthama, and we saw what the crowd said. And Ben, when it comes to, we have 3 presidential candidates in Ukambani. We have one, Dr. Alfred Mutua. We have 2, the governor of Makueni, and we have Kalonzo himself. That says a lot about his numbers. And in the last election, he turned around 991,000 votes from Makueni, from the larger Ukambani place. That was with the help of Akina Kivodha and all these and Charity Ngilu and the likes. But now, as he comes a man of his own, and realize also that for somebody like Kalonzo, he must be in the ballot in 2022 for him to have a continued stay in politics. That is not what we can say about Raila. Raila has a support base, and he has the pockets of every part of this country where he only needs to declare his stand, and they will be with him. So in the race where we are heading 17 months from now, what you look at Raila is, you don't look at Raila. The only problem Raila goes to the next polls with is the problem in Mount Kenya, the Raila phobia, which BBI has not been able to help him. If Uhuru Kenyatta had taken Raila to central Kenya and sold him the same way Raila has done to Uhuru Kenyatta in Nyanza, we will be saying now Raila will be the candidate to beat.
All right. Hesbon, let me come back to you. There's an argument that's what I was trying to discuss with Kipchumba here. There's an argument that if he loses this NASA team, he will have lost Kalonzo Musyoka and the Ukambani votes. A lot of people dispute that. He would have lost Musalia Mudavadi and whatever he was bringing from the Western Kenya vote, although many people seem to agree that Raila Odinga has unlimited access to Western Kenya, even without Musalia Mudavadi. But don't you think he will be losing something? And also from the coasts, we have seen the Mombasa governor, Hassan Ali Joho, also declaring his interest in the presidency. There's this talk of a political party for the coastal region. He seems to be losing these things. Where do you see his winning formula coming from?
Well, I think it's a big thing, losing politicians who have, high political, image, corporate brand image outside there. And to compensate for that huge loss is not easy. I mean, for you to package reform and bring on board people who fought with Raila Odinga in the late 1980s, early 1990s, to have an assailable momentum towards 2022, it's not going to be very easy. And what we need to situate broadly is the fact that even these other coalitions that are forming, they're essentially forming on the basis of small-time by-elections here and there. They are not essentially forming along ideology or track record or even a manifesto that is common to all of them. So at the moment where one of them will emerge as the outright candidate for the coalition, we'll see some sort of disintegration, and we've seen this in Kenya. But coming back to the people that Raila is losing and the ones that he's replacing, he's likely to replace them with. You cannot lose someone like, Kalonzo Musyoka and expect things to be normal, for the simple reason that it doesn't really, it's not so much about the votes that he brings from Ukambani as it is about, that national outlook that he gives your political campaign. Because in politics, the number of people who are rallying around you have this effect of rallying people from all over the country. When people hear that, he's running together with a former vice president, it is a big thing because Kalonzo is known in Migori, Kalonzo is known all over this country. Professor Kivutha Kibwana is not known. As a matter of fact, he isn't. So to use that name to rally people from other regions would be a lot more difficult. And therefore, the big names will always be big, And the critical thing for them that makes them not really serious contenders is the fact that they've not carved a niche for themselves, sell themselves beyond their communities.
All right, Mark Bichachi, does Raila Odinga need an endorsement from President Uhuru Kenyatta?
I wouldn't use the term need. He, as I've said before, if you look at the clout he's had both in 2007, 2013, and 2017, you realize that he's a formidable politician. What does he gain from a nod from the president in Uhuru Kenyatta is either a dent in the image of Raila phobia, meaning that the Mount Kenya vote softens its stance towards him, or the fact that they will not come out en masse to vote against him. And if that happens, then the numbers skew quite heavily in his favor. So he doesn't need it, but he stands to gain a lot, not just from him endorsing, but from a cordial relationship with the Mount Kenya region, then he would stand to gain. Remember, in terms of what stops Raila Odinga from becoming president in all of those elections, and famously in 2007 when we waited for votes from Tharaka Nithi, it's always the Mount Kenya vote, which, by the way, for once does not seem to be able to have a candidate. And without that formidable Mount Kenya vote, then Raila Odinga has the greatest chance he's had in a lifetime to become the president of this republic.
Javas Bigambo, how does Raila Odinga access that Mount Kenya vote without the baggage of what the people there seem to think the Jubilee administration has done or not done for them?
I think Raila Odinga needs to throw away the old playbook that he has been using for a long time. Look at William Ruto. Love him or hate him, you realize that he has been able to infiltrate and penetrate the central region to the extent that he can steer and stir conversation in central Kenya, that you can see politicians angling to stand with him, some even to die with him, and propel his agenda. Raila Odinga should not stand on the margins and expect that merely and only by the word and the proclamation of Uhuru Kenyatta that now stand with Raila Odinga, that it will bring every vote and put it in the basket in his favor. So Raila Odinga needs to have dependable foot soldiers in the central region. He needs to have his presence in the central region by making it personal. In fact, putting his own foot in central Kenya and across. Otherwise, if he was just to wait on the margins and that Uhuru Kenyatta should endorse him, then he stands at a very big disadvantage, because if at all the contest will just boil down to Raila Odinga and William Ruto, then there is the chance that William Ruto may hive off central Kenya vote a huge chunk than even Raila Odinga himself. Additionally, I think Raila Odinga also should not continue riding on the wave of assumption. The favor that he presently has with Uhuru Kenyatta may not be driven with the same passion that Uhuru Kenyatta has right now over the BBI issue, because in 2022, regardless of certain key political interests that Uhuru Kenyatta will have and must have over who is it that must take over the baton of governance of this country after him, there is no way Uhuru Kenyatta will be expected to hit the campaign trail with so much energy and charm to stir up the voters the way he did as though he's campaigning for his own re-election. And so Raila Odinga right now must step out of the fold, come up with new political strategies of infiltrating central Kenya. He needs central Kenya so much, actually more than even any other candidate, because the moment he bugs even just more than 50% or 50% of central Kenya, actually he'll be just waiting to be sworn in.
All right. Interesting. Very quickly, Kipchumba, a lot of people are mentioning Kivutha Kibwana and the likes. Nobody's mentioning Mukhisa Kitili, and we haven't talked about him since he declared his intentions on Sunday. What's your take very quickly on Mukhisa Kitili's candidature?
You remember, Ben, when we were growing up as young kids, the birds that were seen are the ones that kids used to describe, and they were the ones that we used to be trained about them. But those ones that were seldomly seen, nobody discussed about them. The same with politics. Whereas Mukhisa Kitili brings international connections, good English, and a command of international issues, that cannot be described and discussed about his understanding of the common problems. Does he understand the day-to-day problems that a normal Kenyan in Nyakemincha, in my village in Tuyabei, goes through? Does he understand that there are people in this country who, if they do not see a politician, they will not eat anything? Those are some of the small things he needs to understand. Secondly, he needs to come down from the ivory tower that I have seen him residing on in most of the interviews he has done, and come to the reality, the realization that we are a third world country, we are a country that we are aligned along tribe and other trivial issues as our culture and other things. At the end of the day, Ben, what he will do, and as somebody said, the more the merrier. He is a candidate, he takes over from where Peter Kenneth left in 2013. He represents that constituency.
This must very quickly, there's a group of Kenyans that says that everybody who's running for president is the same old politicians that Kenyans have had, and that they probably have no solutions to the problems bedeviling Kenyans. And they are saying somebody like Mukhisa Kitili, provides that new, fresh, clout. Do you think he has any political capital?
Well, there's a concept in accounting they refer to as substance over form, and it applies to Mukhisa Kitili, that his only contribution will be elevating the presidential debates. That's if he actually goes the entire mile and presents himself as a candidate, because he'll do very well taking other presidential candidates across debates, discussing socioeconomic issues, and even anthropology. And I think that's where he's going to stop. When you look at his track record and you ask people who think that it's going to be the eureka moment in Kenya, you ask, what are those 3 things which he did in Kenya as a cabinet minister? Can you look at 3 policy interventions? You are not able to pick those interventions. And then you ask for his role at UNCTAD. What are those 3 things that he's done which have had an impact at a global level or even affected Kenya? You are not able to pick anything. And even people back from his village, and this is where we go back and we see that the Kenyan voter is so complicated. They've been asking that this gentleman, from the time he went to the international agency, he doesn't attend funerals and he doesn't come around and visit us. And that's the tragedy we have with our Kenyan voter. That our Kenyan voter are suffering from the Stockholm syndrome, that they've fallen in love with their captor, that they know that the people so described as lions, who are the front runners, have got scandals lined from Mosocho to Timbuktu, but yet they're falling in love with them. Now, these are the people who are in power today. Right now, you know, we are going through the ravages of COVID. People are committing suicide. People are sliding into depression. People's houses are being sold. Now, the same leadership today is telling you that wait a minute, we'll sort out in 2022, and the Kenyan voter is falling in love.
All right. Thank you. We'll see how that plays out. Mukhisa Kitili's presidential bid. Many thanks for staying with us here on Inside Politics. Don't go too far. Time for another quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll get into that imminent tussle between the executive and parliament over the appointment of Mwende Mwinzi as Kenya's ambassador to the Republic of South Korea. She has taken up a workstation, but parliament says it does not support that. It does not approve that. They are set to debate that in parliament. We'll talk about that next. Stay with us.